What's up, guys? We are in the North Georgia mountains and spring is here. The water temperatures are starting to warm. We have a lot more warmer days, a lot more warmer nights. Our days are getting longer. The spawn is approaching, but we're not there yet. We are in the pre-spawn period here in the North Georgia area, Lake Lanier, Lake Hartwell. Basically, let's call it Atlanta up. Right now, we are in pre-spawn. If you're south of that, they might be spawning. If you're north of that, you know, you're still maybe in that winter period. But kind of in this zone, we are in the pre-spawn, and I'm gonna go over my 5 favorite baits for the pre-spawn period. So this time of year, I rely heavily on power fishing techniques. One of my favorites, a bait that I fell in love with a long time ago, is a jerkbait. Recently, I've been throwing this I'm a flit. This is the bigger size. I'm getting this bait down about 6 foot. Throwing it on 14-pound line. I like a little bit bigger line size this time of year. I'm fishing, dealing with a lot of big fish, and I'm fishing this bait not only around cover, but also for open water suspended fish. They're feeding up right now. A lot of these fish that are not relating to cover are actually just below the surface, sunning themselves, warming those eggs, those big females. They're outside of spawning areas, just in these big, deep bays and flats, and they're sunning basically, just like a lizard does, just like an alligator does. They're sunning themselves. It's been cold, and they want to warm those eggs. And there's no better bait to target those fish than a jerkbait. I like to play the cat and mouse game with these fish. Having this bait, I can read the body language of these fish. The biggest thing for me with live scope is body language on how these fish are reacting, how their fins flare, and this is the ultimate bait to be able to read them. And you can adjust your cadence to how aggressive they are or how not aggressive they are. This flit comes in a bunch of great colors. This is probably my favorite one right there. I forgot the name of this color, but I'm actually gonna link it below in the Tackle Warehouse link. Cool stuff with IMA too is we have a lot of new colors coming. So be on the lookout. Some of your old favorite IMA baits haven't been available for a while, but coming soon, we're gonna have these baits readily available to everybody on the market. But this bait's super loud, it's big profile, and it really just gets a lot of big bites this time of year. When I'm not targeting those open water fish, I'm targeting cover, whether it be docks, whether it be laydowns, grass clumps, or even brush piles. So this is the ultimate search bait for me. Gets a lot of bites, gets a lot of big bites this time of year. I want to talk about the rod I'm throwing it on. It's a G Loomis GLX 822C. This is the JBR jerkbait rod. Cool thing about the GLX, it's its own blank. It's something completely different than the G Loomis lineup. And there's a couple different models that are only found in the GLX lineup, and that jerkbait rod being one of them. A lot shorter handle than your traditional Loomis rods, which I'm a huge fan of. Got it on 14-pound massive Shimano fluorocarbon. Shimano SIC tangle-free guides on all these rods. Keep it super lightweight, and kind of effortlessly be able to jerk this bait around even when I want to jerk it hard and aggressively. Huge on that. And then for the reel, I'm using the brand new Shimano Metanium 70 DC. DC size, DC reel and a 70 size body. I didn't know how I was going to feel about this reel because a 70 size reel is pretty small, but for casting in the wind with a jerkbait, and this is a bait I look for wind to throw, having that DC is really important to me. Be able to make long casts, get the bait down there deep, and still has the strong enough gears to get those fish away from cover when I'm fishing around cover. This is probably my favorite jerkbait reel of all time. This is my favorite setup I've ever had for throwing a jerkbait, so check that one out. And everything I'm going to talk about today is going to be linked in below on Tackle Warehouse. Staying in the hard bait lineup of things is going to be a crankbait. This is my favorite time of year to crank other than, deep summertime schools. I'm looking to throw this bait around any sort of corners, points, anywhere that connects deep water to spawning areas is where I'm going to throw this bait. I'm looking for rock and I'm looking for wood. And this is the bait I choose whenever the fish, that I've been throwing all winter basically. And that is going to be the Depths Evoke 1.8. It's a square bill, but it actually has a lot longer lip. The reason I like this bait rather than a traditional round bill bait is the square lip, because when I'm going down a bank and I'm targeting rocks and docks and everything like that, this is a 4-wheel drive bait that I want to just cover everything that's in front of me. I don't want to change baits just to flip a laydown. This is a 4-wheel drive bait. I'm able to get through cover. I don't have to switch rods just because there's a laydown on a bank. I know so many of these lakes that we fish have tornado and hurricane damage, and there's just a lot of wood debris in the water. So I like this color. It's just because it's red and yellow on the bottom. It's 2 bright colors, a lot of stained water this time of year. Targeting the back half of creeks. A lot of rain recently, and it's actually warmer back there than the main lake, and I'm looking for wind to be able to catch them. This is a bait that I catch spotted bass and largemouth on. Whenever we get closer to that pre-spawn period, that's when I'm gonna switch to more of a traditional square bill. This is the IMA square bill. Everybody knows and loves this one. Like I said earlier, these are gonna be back on the market here soon. That's one of my favorite colors right there. It's still bright, but it's kind of that muted color, and I really, really like that one for the lakes around here that have kind of, you know, not dirty water, but kind of like stained water when you get kind of the middle half of those creeks. And I really like to target this bait around wood and docks. I really like this bait for more so for largemouth, wide action whenever it's warm. But don't be afraid to throw this bait even around grass. There's a lot of, you know, submerged grass in some of these mountain lakes, and then also like on Lanier, when we've had such a record low 2 years ago, a lot of new growth came up in some of the backs of these pockets and stuff. So don't be afraid to throw this around that dog fennel stuff. Throw it on a little bit bigger line, 15 to 20 pound, depending on how deep you want to dive. This bait doesn't dive very deep, but it deflects like crazy off of cover. So check that one out. So I'm usually going to lean towards this one, but later in this month, I'm going to reach towards that IMA square bill. Same rod for both these setups. It's going to be a Shimano X Pride. This is the 7.2 medium heavy glass composite rod. So you're able to cast this bait super effectively and accurately and long cast ability. And metaniums. I pretty much rock metaniums on almost all my rods and reels, and just a huge fan of this one. This is just the 6:2 gear ratio, just so the standard metanium. I'm rocking 14 on this one right now just because of where I was at. I was fishing down at Lake Eufaula and I wanted a little bit bigger line. But normally I have 12 pound on this for sure, on both these setups. And then for the square bill, I might keep it on lighter line at first, but when those fish start getting up around cover, that's when I bump my line size up to that 15 to 20 pound. Cover longer. And when these fish are just sliding up and still a little timid, that's the bait I like to reach for. It's just a slow, methodical, wide glide, and it really just hypnotizes these fish into pulling them out of cover. A lot of times I'll catch them on this bait, but sometimes they'll just follow it and I'll know that there's a big fish on that piece of cover and I can target it with like a Neko rig or a jig later on in the day. But that's one of my absolute favorite baits right now. It's new to me. I'm a fan of the slide swimmer for a long time, and the bigger sizes, the 175 and the 250. Never really thrown the 145 until this year, and it's a bait that's going to be on my deck for probably the next 2 months for sure. So speaking of that, I'm also throwing the Optimum Baits Boom Boom swim bait. This is the line through. Got a size 4 Ryugi quad on there, 4-aught quad. Just throwing this on 14 to 16 pound fluorocarbon. Standard just spinnerbait setup is what I like. 7.2 medium heavy, B X Pride. Then again, Shimano Metanium. I like to skip this thing around docks. This bait slides fantastic under docks. So when I can't reach those fish with a glide bait, I really lean towards this. And then once the water is stable and warm, and I say above 50 degrees or above 55 degrees, I really lean towards the line through, that Optimum. It's just a perfect size. They have, I think, a 4-inch all the way to an 8-inch line through. I'm really, really excited to be throwing this bait. It's one of my favorite bites in the world, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to catch some big fish on it today. For that rod, I told you about that, the 7.2, just spinnerbait rod. For this one, Metanium XG, this fast gear ratio. I have this on 16 pound fluorocarbon, Shimano Mastiff, and then this is just our 7.7 heavy swim bait rod. This is a great rod for this bait, but I will say we have a rod designed for these smaller glide baits. You know, your depth slide swimmer 145, your silent killers, mag draft, Optimum Boom Boom. any of those smaller glide baits, smaller, bigger baits, Shimano has a rod that I'm highly anticipating, and that's the Shimano Outlier 7.4. I believe it's a medium heavy, basically just a 7.4 rod, but it's built for swim baits exclusively. The Outlier series is just gonna be a straight swim bait series, but that 7.4 is really gonna fit that tournament angler application for swim bait fishing. So final bait in the lineup, I hinted at it earlier, is going to be a Neko rig. That's just a big bite bait, sensation worm. It's right here, the sensation stick, 5-inch. It's a lot softer than the other, trick stick and stuff, and it's loaded with that sensation scent. Throwing a Ryugi Talisman. This is just the heavy guard. Really like this hook, 1/0. And I don't have a weight in it now, but I'll have one when we start fishing. Anywhere from like a 3/32 or something like that, 3/32 to an 1/8, depending on how deep I'm fishing. 1/16 even sometimes, 3/32. Nail weight in there, 8-pound Shimano fluorocarbon Mastiff FC. Green pumpkin is pretty much just what I stay with. Variations of that. I keep a lot of dye in my boat, so I can make it either orange or green. Chartreuse, whether I'm targeting fish that are eating bluegill versus crawfish. Earlier in the month, I'm going to have more orange on my worm. Dye it up, and then when those fish start sliding, that's when I'll have a little bit more chartreuse, or just keep it natural. 8-pound fluorocarbon, like I said, 15-pound braid, and then on this one, I've got the 2500 Vanford. Love this reel, great drag, and then a 7-foot medium rod. I really like that medium rod. Has the perfect amount of tip to be able to skip the bait under boat docks, scoping around docks, poles, anything like that. These fish are going to suspend, get under there when they're pre-spawn, and it's just a great bait to get a lot of bites. I really like the power fishing stuff, but sometimes you have to slow down, and that Neko rig really gets a lot of bites. Once they start to slide up, almost spawning, I'll take the weight out and just hook it wacky like normal and just wacky rig fish around these boat docks. But guys, these are all the baits I'm targeting using during the pre-spawn, and I hope this helps. Guys, let me know in the comments below what your favorite bait is in the pre-spawn period, and I'm gonna have everything with colors included listed on the Tackle Warehouse links. So guys, do me a favor, click those links. It really helps the channel, helps me out. And we're going to get to fishing. Enough talking about fishing. It's time to go fishing. Appreciate it, guys.